Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? They saw a 26-year-old A-10 pilot whose file whispered too damning, corrosive words. Too emotional, too untested. The men who ran the base, the majors, the colonels, the F-16 jockeys, they kept her pinned to logistics duty. Their eyes slid over her whenever she offered an analysis. She was the Thunderbolt II pilot, the Irish-born anomaly, perpetually small beside her warthog. To them she was a risk. To Delaney, the hog was the only thing on the flight line that didn't judge. The Kandahar sun beat down, a relentless, blinding weight, pressing down on her spirit as much as the heat did on the tarmac. Major Sanderson, his face a mask of practiced, unyielding authority, delivered the verdict again at 6:30 in the morning. She wasn't flying, he stated, his voice flat, final. Formation work with the new kids. I need steady leadership. The translation hung in the dry air, thick and stinging, not you. Delaney swallowed the familiar burn of dismissal. She nodded once, curt and professional, and kept working. Indignation was a luxury. She chose preparation. For months, Delaney had been doing what nobody asked. She didn't just study, she lived in the simulation and the documentation. Night sims, terrain studies, ballistic tables. She memorized them cold. She ran manual backup math in her head, in case the targeting pod died. She perfected the posto basics for radio sanity checks, a rhythmic chant of procedure to keep the crucial link alive under stress. Delaney knew the cold, hard math of the A-10's 13 GAU-8 Avenger. They said it could write its name in steel. She knew in the right hands, it could thread a needle at 50 meters. They said she didn't have the hands. She had mapped valleys and ridge lines. She circled boxes in red pencil where current air support doctrine simply failed, areas too close, too masked, too infested with SAMs. No one wanted her analysis. She kept studying anyway. In a recent briefing, she dared to ask the inconvenient question. What if this movement isn't prep, but a trap designed to isolate us where air can't help? The answer was immediate, patronizing. Track equipment, Captain. So she did track the equipment. But at night, she ran the same dark scenario again, and again in a locked simulator she'd quietly taught herself to access. Friendly surrounded, missiles in the hills, danger close all around. She practiced killing the SAMs without breaking off the gun run. 47 iterations, each one tighter than the last. She practiced laying a scalpel of 30 between friendly strobes and hostile muzzle flashes. It was a surgical dance. Her inner conflict, respect the chain of command or respect the oath, was resolved in the silent, humming simulator. Every extra hour was a vote for the oath. She kept a letter in her locker, a final note to command, ready for the moment she would have to explain her insubordination. She felt the heavy, anxious certainty that the world was about to catch up. She stood alone, listening to the silence of the ops center, but what came next, no one expected. The moment arrived at 1:47 in the afternoon. The base siren, a raw electronic scream, cut through the routine. On the screens, the dry topo lines of Afghanistan suddenly filled with terrifying color. It was the Koringal-style valley she knew by heart. The map Delaney had circled in red pencil months before was now a live crisis. The report was stark: SEAL Team 7 and detachments. 381 total personnel, surrounded by 800 fighters. Enemy forces on 3 ridge lines. Friendlies trapped in a natural bowl. The valley had become a killbox. The command center became a chamber of contained panic. The grim facts piled up: 2 confirmed SAM sites. Helicopters couldn't get in. The F-16s were 15 to 25 minutes out. But their rules, their doctrine, were a concrete wall. No shots within 100 meters of friendly strobes. The SEALs had enemies at 50 meters. The Air Force's fastest jets were their slowest help, their powerful weapons rendered useless by proximity. Sanderson, his face grim, demanded options. The room offered Doctrine. Delaney, standing apart, offered the A-10. Denied, Sanderson snapped. We're not risking an untested pilot. The logic was rational. Risk one plane and pilot, but only a proven one. Then the razor blade of reality cut through the debate. A comms tech, his voice shaking, cut in. SEALs report 30 minutes of ammo left. Time ended the debate. Doctrine did not. Delaney didn't argue. She stepped out into the echoing concrete hall. She counted 30 seconds. The entire timeline of the mission, perfected over months, snapped into crystalline clarity. 10 minutes from locker to wheels up. 12 minutes to the valley. That left a knife-edge window. She went to her locker and retrieved the letter she'd kept for months. She wrote the final, determined postscript. If you're reading this, I acted because 381 Americans were dying while paperwork argued with itself. She had already chosen her fate. She suited up. What was she saying on the guard frequency? It was a confession and a declaration of war against the rules, broadcast for the entire air wing to hear. Aircraft 297, her Warthog, was already fueled and fully armed. Full drum of 30 Mavericks rockets. She moved with terrifying efficiency, her actions muscle memory set to fast forward. Oil, hydraulics, chaff, flares, pod, INS. 90 seconds later, the hog was breathing. The jet was alive, its engines roaring a defiance that matched the tremor in her heart. On the official tower frequency, she said nothing. She bypassed the clearance, the layers of bureaucracy that would have stopped her cold. But on the guard frequency, the emergency net, she said everything. The silence on the command net was deafening, the silence of a system that had already failed. She keyed the mic, her voice clipped, professional and terrifyingly clear. Any station, Thunderbolt 7 departing Kandahar, inbound Korangal, 381 Americans about to be overrun. Then the final resigned statement, a line drawn in the sky, breaking rules to save them. Wheels up at 2:23 in the afternoon. She had crossed the Rubicon. The radio from the valley was going ragged. Trident Actual, the SEAL ground force commander, kept it tight, but the cadence betrayed the count, magazines running dry. Minutes later, the F-16 lead checked in. Visual on target area, unable to engage within 100 meters, too danger close. Delaney keyed up, switching to the secure CAS frequency. Trident Actual, Thunderbolt 7, mark your position, IR, I'll work your edge. Silence, then hope. Thunderbolt 7, confirm danger close, authority. Her answer was not official confirmation but a moral declaration. I'm authorized to save Americans. Designate. The resignation in her heart was instantly replaced by a fierce, driving focus. As the bowl-shaped valley opened beneath her, the scene was exactly as she had drawn it in red pencil at 3:00 in the morning. 3 ridge lines, overlapping arcs. Machine guns on the east chewing craters into the SEAL position. What kind of weapon puts rounds 50 meters from your own men? Not a missile, not a bomb, but a surgical scalpel. Delaney didn't hesitate. Her first target was the most immediate threat, the machine gun on the east ridge. She dove the A-10, a screaming angel, its titanium skin shrugging off the air. She killed the first gun with a 2-second burst. Dust blossomed, fire stopped, roll, pull, second run. The next threat, an enemy assault team on the north slope, only 70 meters from friendlies. She stitched a short stitch across the rock. Movement stopped. The crucial confirmation came instantly from the ground. Thunderbolt 7, solid hits. Her focus was absolute, her mind a cold, relentless computer processing ballistics and timing. The next call was the ultimate test. Western Ridge, 75 meters. 75 meters was the distance where every other jet got people killed. It was where the hog lived. She broke left into a steep slice. She lined the reticle just below a rock lip and pressed a half-second burst. The gun printed a straight line of tungsten, a physical, undeniable barrier between the friendly strobes and hostile muzzle flashes. The valley paused. The men on the ground realized the awful truth. An A-10 had just put rounds inside a zone nobody touched. Then the command net roared. Sanderson's voice, cracked with fury and fear, clawed its way into her ear. Kandahar to Thunderbolt 7. Return to base immediately. You are not authorized. Delaney's response was simple. She flipped the command net quiet. She kept only the CAS and ground frequencies alive. She was past permission. Trident Actual, the ground commander, simply continued the designations. Delaney worked the secret playbook she'd written. Kill the air defenses first. A Maverick missile launched into a hot SAM site on the southern spur. Then she used the terrain itself as a shield, masking behind a ridge to break the other site's lock. Her job now was to open a lane. What did the sound of the gun mean to the men below? It meant life. It meant moving. Delaney had seized control of the ground fight through sheer, deadly precision. Talk the ground, Trident, she commanded. Push 3 teams west under my fire. Stay below the rock lip. I'm walking rounds uphill ahead of you. This wasn't asking permission. It was a military order. Within minutes, the radio cadence shifted. The breathless panic was gone. In its place, less panic, more verbs, moving, set, next bound. She had given them back their agency. She had empowered them. In the op center, the radar tracked a single A-10 carving armored Zs in a valley of red icons. The F-16 lead, now a high-altitude observer, radioed back to the base, a grudging off-field assessment. Observing, placing rounds inside 25 meters of friendlies. Either suicidal or surgical, so far surgical. The men who had mocked Delaney went very quiet. The SEAL comms feed confirmed her effect. Thunderbolt 7, that was the gun pinning our east, clear to move, copy, shift north. Hayes from the Inspector General's office, the upholder of the rule book, reminded Sanderson what the book required. But Morrison pointed at the map and spoke for what the moment required. She's the only asset that can do this. Support her or write the eulogy. Sanderson hesitated at the knife edge, dividing his career and his conscience. Delaney, working with professional focus, didn't wait. Her third pass erased the second SAM site with a pop-up Maverick. Now helicopters could start thinking, but first, the exit cut. She guided Trident Actual onto a seam she had seen in satellite photos months ago. A shallow fold on the west ridge, visible only if you'd walk the topo lines by hand. Thunderbolt 7, that fold is real. We can move in it, do it. I'll rake the high points 50 meters ahead of you. The 30-millimeter rounds descended, thudding like a giant zipper closing across stone. Enemy fire stuttered, then stopped. The SEALs bounded. Blue icons moved for the first time all day. The fight was an organized breakout, but the enemy was tenacious. An element tried to roll the corridor from above, closing the distance. 50, then 40 meters. Delaney flattened the dive. She pulsed a 3/4-second burst that shaved the ridge like a carpenter's plane, sending chips of rock flying. Then stillness. Good effect, Trident Actual said, breathless but steady. We're at the mouth. 2 more positions on the far lip. Mark with spark, she commanded. An IR winked on the ridge. She split it by a body length. No friendlies hit. The corridor held. By the time the F-16s could legally help on the outer rings, Delaney had already decapitated the inner ones. Helicopters spun up. Sanderson finally made his choice. He opened the support floodgates. A new voice, calm and authoritative, came on the primary command net. Thunderbolt 7, Kandahar has you on primary. We're with you. Delaney didn't answer command. Her only focus was the ground. Trident Actual, continue the push. I'm staying on your shoulder. The corridor was a carved zipper of silence through a mountain shouting war. Delaney stayed welded to Trident Actual's shoulder, turning the valley into a sequence of micro-battles she could win in seconds. A pickup truck gun team crested high right, too thin for a Maverick. She dipped, let the pipper kiss the hood, and tapped. The truck folded. West High is cold, she called. An RPG team tried to get clever with offsets. She beat the shot by instinct, flare, half-second stitch across the muzzle flash, offset shooter neutralized. The SEALs advanced by bounds, flowing like water. Every bound, Delaney put 30, exactly where it made the next 10 seconds survivable. She was the definition of vigilant. They were at the edge, the mission cresting into triumph. Thunderbolt 7, we're at the LZ fold, Trident Actual said, his voice steadier now. 2 positions still raking us. Paint 1. An IR wink, 1 pulse of the gun, and the ridge exhaled. Paint 2, the second wink. She shaved it off the mountain. LZ is workable. Rotors inbound, 3 minutes. 3 minutes was a lifetime. Delaney made sure the ridge stayed asleep. The first Chinook surfed its own brownout into the fold. Delaney pushed out to the rim, hunting anything with line of sight into the LZ. 2 muzzle flashes blinked in a stand of rock. She pressed a diagonal burst like a zipper across stone. The flashes died. Chalk 1 lifting, taking aboard first sticks. Second Chinook in, another dust cloud. Another moment where a single uncut thread could strangle the whole effort. Delaney found the thread, a PKM team shifting positions. She snipped it with 3 rounds. Chalk 2 lifting, we're green. A third bird risked it. Then the sound that made a pilot's blood run cold. A Sam Seeker tone chirped. Last threat, last card. She was already moving, already low, already behind the ridge when the missile searched for heat and found only rock. She popped up, found the launcher team trying to displace, and ended that chapter with a short, merciless tap. Trident Actual, she said, voice level. Your last sticks on Chalk 3 and 4, we're almost out. Almost was still not out. An enemy element tried to sprint the lip in desperation. Delaney wrote a bright short line between them and the LZ. The sprint stopped. Chalk 4 lifting. The air mission commander said, all aboard, we are off. Delaney held her fire until the very last men were swallowed by the brown cloud. Then she raked the ridge again, not to kill but to tell every watcher, not today, not while I'm here. The valley was only wind and dust. The sound in the headset was her own ragged breathing. Trident Actual came back on, clipped and formal, because some things demand ceremony. Thunderbolt 7, be advised. 381 souls accounted for. 0 friendly KIA during exfil. We owe you our lives. Copy, she said, nothing more. She kept flying lazy esterns high and wide, the silent guardian, until the last rotor was a dot, and the corridor had closed itself behind them like a healed wound. On the way home, she took stock. Fuel fine, 1 Maverick left, gun drum light, flares low. Hands steady, mind clear. She flipped the command net back on. Kandahar, Thunderbolt 7 RTB. Silence. Then Sanderson, his voice controlled but unreadable. Thunderbolt 7 cleared direct. The runway stretched ahead like a question. Touchdown was smooth, taxi slow, shut down by the book. She pulled the canopy release, and the base's heat and noise climbed in. They were all on their feet. Maintainers, ammo troops, medics, pilots, the Chow Hall crew. It wasn't a pep rally. It was respect in its raw form. Delaney climbed down. Sanderson waited with the Inspector General and half the senior staff. She stood at attention. "You departed without authorization," Sanderson said. "You violated orders. You engaged at ranges that exceed every comfort zone we've written." "Yes, sir," Delaney affirmed. Sanderson took a long, ragged breath. "You also brought home 381 Americans without a single friendly killed during the movement." He paused, the battle between the book and his conscience etched on his face. "Captain Thomas, you will answer for your decisions. But today, the only thing you'll answer is a question. Can you teach exactly how you did that?" "Yes, sir," she replied. The formalities came anyway. Statements, timelines, questions designed to test whether she gambled or calculated. Delaney answered with math, map, memory, and method. Technique over theater. She didn't justify, she explained. The Inspector General, Hayes, conceded at last. "You broke procedure. But your procedure was better for the problem you faced." The conclusion was quiet, profound, and redemptive. "We will not make a habit of rewarding insubordination. We will make a habit of fixing doctrine." The consequence on paper was a reprimand for the unauthorized launch. The consequence in practice was real responsibility. 6 months later, the patch on her shoulder read "Close Air Support Development." She taught from first principles. Read the ground like a book. Every fold a word, every ridge a sentence. Gun discipline, taps not streams. Kill the right nodes. The shooter that anchors a crossfire is worth 10 in the open. Talk ground, not ego. Say only what moves a team 10 meters closer to living. Pilots who used to smirk took notes. Pilots who used to lecture asked questions. Sanderson found her by the sim bay. "I was wrong about you," he said without hedging. "I saw risk where there was preparation. That's on me." Delaney, vindicated but humble, replied, "I was out of lane. That's on me." "Then let's redraw the lanes where they should have been." The analyst pinned the final number on the wall. 381 extracted. 0 friendly KIA during movement. People touched it, the way you touch a relic without saying a prayer. Delaney avoided the hallway, not out of modesty, but out of accuracy. Skill mattered, so did timing, so did luck, so did the men on the ground. Doctrine shifted by inches. Minimum engagement distances became guidelines with context, not commandments without brains. New lieutenants arrived, wide-eyed. Delaney gave them the same line. "Technology is a promise, not a plan. The plan is you. Learn the ground, learn the gun, learn the people on the net. Then, when a valley asks a question nobody wants to answer, you'll have one ready that keeps Americans alive." When she walked the flight line, she still ran her hand along titanium like it was a living thing. Some mornings, a letter on her desk had no return address. Inside, a coin, a patch, or a single sentence from someone who had been there. "You showed up." She kept those in a plain box. She never opened it on days she flew. One evening, she taxied back after a training hop. The line crew chief, grease on his sleeve, looked up and said what needed saying once. "Ma'am, it's good to know if we ever get pinned bad. You've already been where the map stops." Delaney smiled. "The map never stops," she said. "Sometimes someone just has to draw the next line." The point wasn't that one pilot broke rules. It was that one pilot proved the rule beneath all the others. Skill married to courage can turn a tomb back into a road home. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.